Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we're going to be looking at how to scan a range of IP addresses. Alright, so why is this important? Well, the reason this is important is because scanning a range of IP addresses is good for target specification. Now, what do I mean? It simply can be used to scan, to specify, let's say you wanted to scan your entire network, and obviously you specify it with a range that you want to specify. Obviously, again, as you can see, this is where it really gets good with target specification. So let's say I only wanted to scan a specific range of IP addresses. Let's say I had configured a subnet and a subnet that runs under certain circumstances, and I wanted to scan a range of IPs that belong to that subnet. So this is where this would come really handy. Now, before we get started, I just want to show you guys a quick little command that will help you a lot as you try and master Nmap. Okay, so this command is really very simple. It is the Nmap help command. All right, so you simply open it up with Nmap and you use the help, which is obviously beginning with the 2 dashes. All right, and if I hit enter, essentially it's going to return this long list of information. Now, this may seem really confusing, and you may be asking yourself, well, wow, this is a lot to take in. Well, the truth is you just have to look at it, and you shouldn't really focus on learning what each of these commands does. As you can see, it is specifying the different types of commands you can use. And it is categorized under, categories like scan techniques, port specification, and scan order. We'll be looking at all of this, but it is very important after you've gone through the course. If you look back here, you'll start seeing that you understand what each of these commands is doing. Alright, so I would really encourage you to go through this and understand it as well, because it will really help you, especially moving forward as you look to master Nmap. Alright, so let's get started now with scanning a range of IP addresses. Now, I have a local area network, alright? And on my local area network, I have about, you can say I have, I have mobile devices, I have tablets, I have computers, and of course the computer that I'm currently working on. Now, if I opened up the ifconfig command, alright, this would display what my IP address is. Alright, so we really don't care what this IP address is, because we are not scanning this. We want to scan a range of IP addresses. Okay, so let's say on our, let me just clear that out. On our local area network or on your network, you want to scan a specific range of IP addresses. How would you go about doing this? Alright, so on my network, I have actually created a subnet where I have 2 routers. Alright, so on my first router that I use for my Wi-Fi connection. On my second connection, I created a subnet that runs under a different IP range, and I'll explain that right now. Alright, so let's get started. So in order to obviously use the command, we have to start it off with Nmap, and then we specify the range. Now, probably you already know what your default gateway is. Your default gateway is the IP address structure, and it's going to be pretty much similar here. So 192.168, all right, and 0.1. Now this is where I specified my own subnet. All right, usually with routers they go about 0 and 1. Okay, and then you specify the range. But with mine, I'm using a 1.1, and then here is where you specify the range. Alright, so let's say you had you can, depending on the size of your network, I would recommend that you scan for a range of 100. That will probably make sure that you discover all the devices on your network. Now, as I've stated before, on my network, I use DHCP, which means that my IP addresses are randomly, all the devices are randomly given different types of IP addresses, and that is to help with security. So I'll go for a larger range, like 200, alright? And as you can see, we're not specifying any commands, which means it's just going to perform a normal scan, the most basic of scans. So once I hit enter, this will scan all the IP addresses on my network range, and will obviously, if it discovers a computer, it's going to scan it, and it's going to return the results. So let's hit enter, and for some reason I'm not getting a result. Alright, so I can actually show you my mistake here. Again, it's very important to get syntax right. So my mistake was not specifying the range properly. So 1 to 200. Alright, that's how you properly assign a range that you want to scan. So I'm going to hit enter again, and it's probably going to take a long time because there are 200 IPs that it has to scan through, and out of all of those IPs, it is probably only going to discover about like 6 or 8 because those are the amount of devices on my network. So I'll get back to you when the scan is complete. Alright, so the scan is complete and it has returned, as you can see the results here. I'll give you a summary of the scan results. So Nmap done, 200 IP addresses. It scanned for 200 IP addresses because we specified the range, and it'll give us information about the amount of hosts that were up. So essentially I only have 4 devices that are currently online, and that is true. Okay, so let's see what devices it returned. So this is where the scan began, and the first scan was it actually detected my router. So as you can see here, the services that are running on the different ports. So we have our SSH port, our Telnet port, which is always good to see on a router, and that is something again that you really want to look at closing. Alright, now looking at the other computers, this is my other workstation, and as you can see, this is probably a Windows operating system because it has a lot of Microsoft services running on the different ports specified. Okay, and finally we have this computer right here, which is again, it's also running Windows, but I'm running Kali Linux on a virtual machine. I don't have Metasploitable 2 currently running, so again, it's not going to detect that. So again, that is how to scan for a range of IP addresses, and you can experiment with the different ranges that you have on your network, and this will really come in handy for specialized networks where you have a different type of ranges. For example, if you know, in an enterprise environment where you would have different IP ranges for administrative computers, different for employee computers, etc., etc. All right, so that's going to be it for this lecture. In the next lecture, we're going to be looking at how to scan entire subnets. All right, so I'll be seeing you in the next lecture.